To order at 6:35, and I would entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make that motion.
Bruce, I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, let's do a roll call. Kate, you just call out the names, you get a yes or no.
Okay, so we'll start with roll call. Bruce,
Yes, here.
Christine is absent, and Arlen absent,
Mhm.
Craig,
Yes.
and Kate, yes.
Okay, we are in closed session at 6:35. We're gonna go across the hall.
Yes, that's
Okay.
how it's noticed.
Okay. Opposed? Carries 3-0. All right, so we have some consent agenda items. Oh, come on. And the minutes from the May 17th school board meeting. Some professional staffing recommendations. A whole bunch of professional staffing recommendations and co-curricular staffing recommendations. Now, we don't have to have a vote on those.
So you also have 3D and 3A.
Yeah, I'm just getting to 3D here. Okay, so moving to 3D, administrative staffing recommendations. Scott Brown, interim administrative part-time liaison to WEVA schools. Administration recommends that Scott receive a contract effective 7/1/21. Do I have a motion?
So, but you have, part of the consent agenda is 3A, 3B, 3D, and 3E. All four of those are part of,
Yeah, so if you
Yeah.
approve a consent agenda, it will it'll approve all the things in consent agenda unless a board member wants to pull an item out, so you
Yep.
don't have to do it individually.
Yep. So we need a motion on 3D then.
No.
You need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Oh, to improve the consent agenda items.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent
Thank
agenda.
you, Kate.
And I will second that, Kate.
Bruce, second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 3-0. All right, now we go back up to 3D.
No.
No, that should all be.
Oh, we approved that?
All the
Yes.
consent, yep.
The whole thing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, I'll get this, I'll get it. It'll come. All right, personnel items unnecessary for vote. And then we will move to public comments. Angie, do you do a thing here, or should we just move? We have one public comment that I'm aware of.
Just give me one moment. It looks as though we do not have any attendees at this time, but I will make my comments, just one moment. All right. If you'd like to make a public appearance by speaking to the board, please utilize the Q&A portion found at the bottom of your Zoom window. In the Q&A, we ask that you type your name, address, subject of interest, and whether you have discussed this item prior to the meeting. After submitting that information, I will transfer you over to the Speak to the Board. Give a couple
Just
of
give a
minutes.
couple minutes and
If
then
you'd like to read the written comment.
And I
Bruce
was
has,
gonna read
Bruce
it.
is gonna read the written comment. We'll just give him a couple of seconds here, Bruce, and then we can go.
Okay. All right, this is from Liz Reiser?
Riser Lober, I believe?
Yes, Lober.
Yes.
Okay, I don't want to butcher the name too badly. She writes, "Writing a comment for the board to review seems like a futile attempt to be heard. The board and administration have still done nothing to improve trust amongst all the community, especially with that vote last meeting. Not hearing comments that I'm sure more parents would have liked to make. Regardless, my concern for the fall is that the administration and board will disregard common sense as has been done so frequently this past year. The way the CDC phrased the mask recommendations has been grossly abused and will affect the upcoming cold and flu season. Will the unvaccinated children be at risk? Absolutely. Experts agree that the population will not be in as much danger as last year, but they disagree on the upcoming death toll. Americans are quick to forget and incredibly selfish. Let's not forget the population ineligible for the vaccination. Let's not forget that up to 85% of the population needs to be vaccinated or natural immunity for herd immunity, which is silly anyways due to the virus mutations where we'll all need booster shots. Doing the math, 85% of Americans equals all people aged 12 and older. We all know that roughly 30% of the population is not going to be vaccinated, no matter what is said or done. and that the natural immunity doesn't last that as long. This leaves a window of infection. COVID is with us for the foreseeable future, as in forever. Kids should be back in school. My husband and I certainly want our boys back in school, but we need to be able to trust the board and administration to put safeguards in place that make sense. The way things were talked about last meeting, we simply do not believe you are going to keep the mask or cohorts or any type of protocols in place and go back to normal when the world has changed. The pandemic changed the way things are viewed upon as normal, and it's best to get aligned with that thought process. Please Google and read this article for more information, and it mentions what experts predict from COVID this fall and winter.
And I
Is that
can
it? That's the end? Okay,
Yes.
And I
Sorry.
can verify that we have not had anyone registered using the Q&A feature.
thanks, Angie. Okay, thank you very much for the input, always appreciated, always heard, and always considered. Do we go to the district administration report at this point?
Yes.
Jeff, take it away.
Well, I think this kind of helps, and maybe this is a real nice lead into a public comment. Item 6A is just a quick update about school, and right now we're not talking about the fall, but we're talking about this summer. So, as you might have noticed and posted, and what went out to our community and our staff, was what's gonna apply for this summer. With regards to masking, we will have applications for summer school activities, MRAP, athletics, extended school year, and any other activities happening in school buildings or on school grounds. This past year, the district has required masks for students and adults indoors and outdoors regardless of vaccination status. Beginning today, the following will be expected, but here are some bullet points. Adults are to wear masks when working with students/minors indoors. Students/minors are to wear masks when indoors. Adults not working with students or minors and are vaccinated may work indoors without masking. Adults and students, minors, may be unmasked outdoors. In the table below, which is posted on each of our doors throughout the district, you'll see some nice smiley faces that have either a mask on or not a mask on. We also talk about the quarantine timeline. This past year, the school district had followed the 14-day quarantine for all students. We took that all the way through the end of the school year. Beginning June 7th, we are going to have options for families, but minimally, if we need to quarantine, it'd be 7 days. So there are pieces in place that if we were to have to do some quarantining, we can get into this when we have those situations. Physical distancing guidelines. Physical distancing is still recommended for all staff and students, although it is not required. And then notifications of the positive cases will become once a week as opposed to every day on our website. So that is our update at this time with regards to school status reminders and updates. Recent district photos and events.
Actually,
Oh, go ahead.
just, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Kate, but just after a cursory review of this and listening to Jeff, what are your thoughts on this as a healthcare provider?
I think it's a very safe way to do things. Right now, I think, especially with the younger kids, you don't know who's vaccinated and who's not, so it's just safer to wear masks when you're indoors. And then for the quarantine options, it looks like they're following exactly what the CDC guidelines are, which is what I think we need to do right now.
Excellent, thank you.
As a note, with respect to, while we still have athletic teams in competition, although all of them are outside, our athletic teams, along with the WI rules, are still going forward with lots of masking and distancing pieces, which also includes when our teams travel on the buses, they will be masked. Because again, we can't collect the data of who's vaccinated or who's not, even though we know all of those participants would be already over age 12.
Right. Okay, I'm just curious. Thank you.
We'll continue to follow also our counterparts in Dane County. Oh, okay. So I wonder, I think what we're gonna do with regards to recent school district photos and events, we're gonna move that to the next meeting
Okay,
in 2 weeks, and I think we'll move on over, let's see here. You see the future school board meeting dates of June 21st. School board meeting, June 28th is a joint meeting at 5:30 PM with the Village of McFarland and the McFarland School Board.
is that gonna be over there?
Yes, it will be.
I'm going to try to be there. So,
Actually, I think that's actually gonna be a Zoom meeting, but they haven't clarified that yet. So that might be everybody being somewhere.
then I'll
So,
Zoom from home.
Yeah. Okay.
and certainly if someone wants to Zoom from an office, we can always make that available, or a room here. And that is related to diversity, equity, and inclusion issues and updates, and the work that both boards are, and school districts have
Correct.
been doing. The presentation from McFarland School District will be done by Melissa and Aaron, who will be also doing that at the June 21st school board meeting as well. So you'll have some repetition there, but a good dialogue for us to have and start to communicate with our village on as well. Then there is, the only meeting in July is July 19th at this time, and then 2 regularly scheduled meetings, August 2nd and 16th. That would conclude the district administration report.
I could share strictly through Zoom, and then I could share my screen with Dr. Anderson. That way we could
Oh,
share this way.
then we could still have some photos,
Yeah.
which are actually some of the happiest photos of the year.
Yeah.
All right,
Shift it around. One moment. All right. You can see it their way. Oh, good, it did move it up there. Good.
so this would be the senior parade, which happens at each of our buildings. So CEPS, many of the kids had the signs. I don't think we have any pictures of actually the graduates going through, but they go through not only CEPS, but Wabisa and the middle school. And that has become a tradition that, particularly in Dane County, I don't know if it was in Mount Horeb.
Not when I was there, but it has been at the other 2 districts since I've left.
It's a great,
So Middleton started it about 10 years ago, and everybody throughout the county. I actually went to my daughter's in Park Elementary last Friday, and it's probably the only event in this whole graduation thing that I cried at. But it was pretty neat to see just from a parent perspective as well. So it is a very neat experience, and it really motivates each side of the kids. So wonderful event. I think they're getting in the way there. And then certainly Greg doing some guest reading. And the Olympiad, this is a tradition at Wabisa.
that was a big hit.
We had great weather too.
Yeah, my grandson made accommodations to shorten the vacation so he could get back in town to do the Olympiad.
Our orchestra using our stage. The band playing for the first time together, 7th grade band. I wonder if they like that new setup. If you cannot read it, it says, "It's not about the cards you have been dealt, it's about how you play your hand." That's the motto of the 2021 class. I like the t-shirt, pound done. This was our MHS Student Services graduation, which was held last week, Friday. Attended very well. We had all 7 of our graduates that went through the 18 to 21-year-old program. Wonderful turnout, certainly, again, great weather. So that was a very special and fun event. And there's your graduating class. There is a video that shows a little bit more of this, but that would be the picture of the class of 2021.
And I thought that ceremony went about as well as it possibly could have.
It did.
It did.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we had potential for excessive heat, we had potential for somebody falling in the bleachers. Everything went just great, and I'd like to personally congratulate anyone that was involved in it, from Jeff Finstead and Ann and Melissa and Sarah and all of those folks. That's such a big deal, and this year it was especially complicated, I guess, and a little bit difficult, but kudos to everyone who had anything to do with that. It was just a knockout of a ceremony. It was really, really good.
So I think that concludes.
Okay, and that's the end of your report, young man?
For number 6,
Okay,
put a different hat on.
there we
I'm
go.
not saying, I wish it was as pretty as those pictures up there, but number 7 would be the 21-22 budget update. I did have a chance to send you each a summary of kind of what's going on with the Legislative Fiscal Bureau. The last time we talked about budgets, you know, we're still optimistic that we're at least gonna get through Joint Finance Committee with some opportunities that there'd be more dialogue before the governor moves forward with the budget. But in summary, the Joint Finance Committee chose to put no increases under the revenue limits, so 0 per pupil adjustment. Their per pupil aid, additionally, they're leaving at a flat amount of $742 per kid, so a 0 increase on that as well, and no increase to general state aid. That has impacts for if you have enrollment changes going up, shifts in your number of students coming, that really any new increases that your district might experience would be an increase to property taxes. So, with that said, when we had went through, and the models have been running this whole spring, and the last time I presented, we were looking at about $340,000 deficit. That has now migrated to just about $800,000 of a deficit. Further, we are already looking at about $1 million deficit for 22-23, but that's now looking at about $2 million. Now, that doesn't include our WEVA impact. So I wanted to share with you a document. Again, this is historical back to the first year of, I better get back to talk, otherwise our audience won't hear us. It seems pretty fucked up there. So, if we went back to 2009, 2010, that was our first fiscal year that WEVA had a impact on us. And you can see that we have a revenue side, that is the open enrollment dollars that come from other school districts, and then we disperse a portion of that money to WEVA. Per the contract, the McFarland School District for helping operate some of the day-to-day functions and to authorize that Four Lakes Education Board, there's a retention in each of the 4 contracts for the 4 different WEVA schools of either 4% or 5% of the dollar transferred. So our school district has retained since the start at least $300,000, and we are approaching, our estimate for this year is closer to $1 million. And it's based on the number of students and the actual transfer rates that are used for open enrollment, regular ed, and special ed. The items between 2009, 2010 to 2017, 2018, you see that I highlighted those in orange. Those have been revenues, net revenues that have been used and a part of our budget. From the start we used to have all 300,000 of it. When we approached 2018, 2019, into 2019, 2020, we were able to not be reliant on those revenues. So the last 2 fiscal years, those revenues have went into fund balance. This year budget revenue for WEVA will help us offset those additional $1.5 million worth of costs we've had with COVID. So with 21, 22 and moving forward, you'll see minimally that we could be looking at using at least 750,000 of our allocation that we receive from WEVA to help offset. So if we were to be dealt that hand, and if we want to play our cards the right way, we're really looking probably at about a $50,000 deficit for our school district out of all of the state, when we think we have a different situation than many other schools. So as we finalize that budget and get to that final piece in October with our annual meeting, we will likely have a balanced budget based on where the fiscal bureau is at. But that's certainly not what our goal was in our advocacy, certainly with our work as WASBO board members and the School Administrators Alliance. Funding is not certainly anywhere near what is needed to move a budget forward without potentially in the future starting to have that conversation about referendum.
Right.
So that's about as exciting as it could make that this evening, is that McFarland is a very fortunate district to have some opportunities. We have had the opportunity to add to our fund balance, which has also negated our need for short-term borrowing over the years.
Yep.
We have now gotten to that point, and we are looking to utilize some of these balances that were gonna go in, particularly at the thinking in early 2019, is that we knew we were gonna start seeing some state aid hits because we're starting to enter into negative tertiary aid, that we would be able to look at how can we balance our increases to our taxpayers. But the latest budget that's been forwarded, or budget recommendations by Joint Finance, will, even though they're looking to have a cap, if there are more students coming in your district in future years, your increases are based on the number of kids you have, and if there's not any new state aid, it's revenue cap minus state aid equals property tax. So if that's frozen, it does shift then to the property taxpayers. So we'll continue to have that dialogue and show more scenarios as we gain more information. I do believe that this biennial budget will take some time. I've had a couple years that we've had biennial budgets approved in October.
Right.
One just a little bit before the end of October. But again, we've strategically put ourselves in the place over the last several years to move forward with the initiatives we have, particularly with our compensation plans, to be in good markets with our support staff and our teaching staff. So, and we're not, having those conversations about what's got to come off before 21, 22. The last piece, I don't know if many caught it in that reading, but the way Joint Finance developed its thinking, at this time, there are no districts in the state of Wisconsin that could actually have a referendum based on when you can have a referendum and the number of days of notice you have to provide, that nobody in 21, 22 could actually have for the 22, 23
Right.
fiscal year. So the first time a district could really be looking at a referendum for operation before you have to set the final levy will be 23, 24. So they've really put us in, all school districts in the state of Wisconsin, into a very precarious spot.
What happens if there's not we need a significant change in, the budget process between what the governor says we need for public education, and what the budget committee came out with was something like less than 10% of what the governor had asked for.
He does
Is
have
that
the
gonna go
veto power.
through?
I mean, the governor at the end does have the veto power.
Right.
You know, first he can do line item, but he can, if he thinks there's been no progress, he can veto it and send it back and start again. I'm not saying that he would do that, but he has the options to do that. If the gulf is so wide, you know.
Which it
that-
appears to be.
That is an option.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
We'll continue to develop and bring forward our plans as we get closer to a October date.
Okay.
All right.
Any questions? Comments?
Well, I will give you historical perspective, is that there's been other times when there's been wide gaps, and the gaps have narrowed. I mean, I can remember, you know, losing a few nights' sleep over how we were gonna make things work. But, my guess is when it's finally passed, it won't be as Spartan as it is now.
Very good, very good. All right. Okay, thanks very much, Jeff. Anything else? We can move along? All right, action items. 8A, discussion and possible action on authorization related to vaping litigation.
We have Lori Lubinsky as a guest speaker. The school district has worked with Lori in other capacities. And I am not gonna spend too much time. Is Lori available to just kind of dive in and give a little presentation to our board members this evening?
So we're having a bit of an audio problem. Lori
Okay.
and I have been communicating in the last minute or so that
Oh, she can hear you.
You can hear us.
Excellent.
Now we need to hear you, Lori.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Just barely.
Yay, technology. Whatever. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't hear you guys. I saw you talking, and then I got on my computer, and finally I saw that the meeting room was muted. So I'm like, well, they must be talking about something they don't want me to hear. So all good, and I'm glad we're together.
So Lori, I just did a very brief introduction. And instead of me introducing any more, I think you could just take it away.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, board. I want to spend hopefully less than 5 minutes. I know you've had a long night. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I have appeared at no less than like 15 board meetings over the last 2 weeks, including 2 tonight, over this exact issue. So I'm going to give you the big picture overview. There is a lawsuit in California that has been filed. It's called a mass action, which basically in simple terms means there's a shell lawsuit and there's a bunch of individual lawsuits within that shell lawsuit. Every school that is involved has filed its own lawsuit. It's then put into the shell lawsuit. There are at present, there are over 450 public schools across the country that have joined this lawsuit. I believe by the end of the summer, that number will be upwards of 700 or 800, possibly more. The lawsuit is, in its most simplistic form, a lawsuit against vaping manufacturers for injuries and more appropriately captioned damages that public schools have faced as a result of the vaping crisis going on in our country. And in particular, the vaping crisis going on with our youth. The theories or the legal claims that are made in that district or in that lawsuit, excuse me, I spent quite a bit of time vetting that. And I believe that there is a strong case to be made under California law against these vaping manufacturers. In fact, the court that is kind of presiding over this shell case has issued 2 decisions thus far in the case, both of which have been very favorable for the public schools. So I was approached by California Council. They're trying to get kind of local counsel in every state who has ties to schools. I've been a lawyer for almost a quarter of a century and litigating and advising schools for nearly that entire time. I do school district litigation throughout Wisconsin. And so they approached me. I looked at the lawsuit, I read up on it, I reviewed the law, and the bottom line is I was willing to put my name behind it. Because I think it's a valid lawsuit that I think will result in a substantial settlement. How much each district will get will remain to be seen. There is no cost to your district. There's no financial exposure to your district. You will not owe, if there's no recovery, which I highly doubt will be the case, but if there is no recovery, you will not owe a penny to anyone. You will be out one and only one thing, and that is about 10 hours, give or take, of what in my best estimation it's gonna take to fill out a form. So let me explain that. The court in the lawsuit has said that every school, that public school that wants to join in the mass action lawsuit needs to fill out a questionnaire. That is Wisconsin Public Schools' only obligation. If your school decides to join this lawsuit, it's not like lawyers are gonna come and take your deposition or depositions of your administrators or serve written discovery. It doesn't work that way in a mass lawsuit. A mass lawsuit, as I said, is kind of a shell lawsuit. There's one school out in California that is leading the charge, if you will. And if that case goes to trial, which I highly doubt it will, that case will go to trial. The McFarland case, all of the other schools that have joined, your case will never go to trial. But how it works is this. You make a decision as to whether you want to join. If you want to join, you appoint an administrator to act as the point person to complete the questionnaire. Once the questionnaire is completed, let me back up one step. The questionnaire is designed to figure out what are your school district's past and future damages flowing from the vaping crisis. So for example, some of the questions on that questionnaire address things like, how many prior instances of behavioral issues with students have you had with vaping? They address issues like preventative measures your district may or may not have taken. They address future issues. For example, one of the questions talks about how many bathrooms you have. That's relevant because one of the solutions to getting vaping out of our schools is to put what are called vape detectors or vape monitors in the bathrooms. We all know we can't put cameras in bathrooms. That would be unconstitutional. But what we can do is put devices that are designed to measure or detect, that's the better word, detect vaping going on. For those of you that may not know, kids are vaping in classrooms, they're vaping in the hallways, and they're vaping in locker rooms and restrooms. And again, as you may know, the presence of vape doesn't smell like cigarettes, it doesn't smell like cigars. In fact, they've manufactured it so that it smells like citrus or bubble gum, or you name the fruity flavor of the day that could pass as anyone's cologne or perfume. When you complete the questionnaire, the law firm gives that completed questionnaire to a bunch of economists. They've hired experts to, in simple terms, monetize every school district's potential recovery for if there is, either a settlement or if there is a judgment and they have to pay damages. So that is in a nutshell. Let me talk about timing. Your district, ideally we get a decision from the board tonight, but that's not absolutely critical. We would like the form completed by the end of June, early July at the latest. Terms of when the cases will be ripe for settlement, I'd like to think it'd be by the end of this year, but knowing how slow the wheels of justice move, I think it's much more likely it's going to be in 2022. In terms of how much, recovery there may be, only time will tell. I don't believe it'll be a small, let me say it this way. I believe that the amount of time that will be spent will well be worth the recovery that the McFarland School District or any school district in Wisconsin will receive. I truly and honestly believe that this is an opportunity for Wisconsin public schools with a very little bit of effort to address what I believe from working with schools to be a major problem. and a major problem that doesn't have easy solutions because the vape, what's going on is highly addictive, and it is being marketed directly toward our youth, and it becomes very problematic from a detection standpoint. So with that, that's my overview. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
So I have reviewed the form, and the information that we would need would be something that we could be gathering from all of our schools. We do have quite a bit of the information. We certainly know how many bathrooms we have, so that might be the first thing we'll, if the board would want to move forward in this litigation.
And as Lori said, there is no risk to the district. I mean, there's only a potential cash benefit. There's no downfall.
The only downside is the loss of the time to fill out the questionnaire. And that's if you lose. And I truly and honestly don't believe you'll lose. And I believe, in my heart, I believe there will be a significant recovery. I will share with you that I currently have over 30, I believe, it's between 25 and 30 public schools in Wisconsin that have already joined this litigation. And I believe that that number is going to be much more significant as the remaining month or two unfold. I'm scheduled to be in multiple board meetings next week and the following week. So the answer to your question is there's not a penny of exposure to your district. It's simply the risk you have is the time it takes to fill out that questionnaire.
Any questions, any comments for Lori? I personally see no issue with our district joining this lawsuit, assuming that there is no, fiduciary responsibilities. And if indeed the only downside is the time it takes to fill out a questionnaire with the potential for a significant recovery, I would tend to be in favor of it myself.
And it is listed as a potential action item, so you could take action tonight.
Right.
You do have a majority.
No, I agree. I mean, speaking as somebody in the pediatric field, this is a major issue, and it's not even a major issue in the high school. It's more a major issue in the elementary and middle schools. So I think trying to join a lawsuit like this and maybe get some monetary funds to help,
Sure.
Education.
fight this
Yep.
is important.
I just thought of one thing that I didn't say earlier, and I
Kate, I'm
apologize
glad
if
you
I'm.
said what you said, because to me, it just seems almost far-fetched. I mean, I can't
Doesn't it?
imagine kids wanting to vape in the first place, but particularly when you start saying it's in younger grades, that's really scary.
Well, they make it taste good,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Yeah.
make it smell good.
Yeah.
It's just so predatory as far as I'm concerned, but, so am I hearing that
Yes.
we can go ahead and
Yes, we can go ahead.
join this lawsuit?
So you would want to make a
We'd have to
motion.
make a motion.
Yes, yeah. So I would accept the motion, or I would look for a motion authorizing the district to enter into the litigation described by Attorney Lori Lubinsky.
I'll make the motion.
And I will
Okay.
second it.
And Bruce,
Yes.
any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 3-0. Well, there you go.
Thank you,
All
Lori.
right, sounds good.
You
I'll
can,
work with-
me,
I will work with your administration to get the engagement agreement signed, and then we'll go to town. I'll be available to help with any questions you may have on completion of the form, and I'll work with administration, and we'll get that done. And then the next time we might be coming to the board might be 6 or 8 months from now, or whenever it is, asking for your approval, hopefully to accept a settlement that you can do a lot of good for your community and for your kids. I truly believe that.
Excellent.
thank you, Lori.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much,
thanks.
Lori.
Yep, bye.
Okay, moving on. Action on 2020-01 2020-2021 budget changes. Administration recommends approval of the attached budget changes for the 2020-2021 school year. Do I have a motion? I'll move.
I'll second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 3-0. Action on recommended WEVA Destination Career Academy and, I always forget this one, Insight
School, Wisconsin.
School of Wisconsin. Statute 118.408G, student transfers to residence districts. At this time, WEVA, Destinations Career Academy, and Insight School of Wisconsin are requesting approval of recommended student transfers back to their resident districts due to lack of engagement. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Bruce?
And I'll second.
Kate? Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 3-0. Discussion items.
Well, first, I'd like to, for those who haven't met me, I'm Dr. Wayne Anderson. I'm the new superintendent for the McFarland School District, and I'm glad to be here. One of the things that I'd like to bring to, up for discussion tonight is the potential of doing some strategic planning during the year in which I'm here. And what I look at strategic planning is different than what you might have been used to. I had been involved in strategic planning where you spent a year, you compiled a binder that was this huge, that you could barely lift on the shelf, and it never left the shelf. So you spent lots of time, created lots of frustration. So I prefer to think of it as strategic thinking. It's something that should fit on really the front and back of a page of paper. It shouldn't go beyond 3 pages. But what you do is you first start about thinking, what is it you'd like to accomplish in the next 5 years? And then the second step is, what would you like to see at the end of this school year? And then you sit down, and the first step is you meet as a board and you talk about what are the things that you would like to see. Where would you like to see the McFarland School District going? And I always say dream big. Too many people dream small. Dream big. If you dream big, you don't hit everything, but you hit most of the things, you're going to be farther ahead than if you dream small. And you can accomplish a lot more when you work together. After you have that discussion, then you go out and you seek input, and that is extremely important. You want to find out, what does your staff think? Where do they want you to be in the next 5 years? What are the things that they think need to be done to make this school district even better in their eyes? Then you talk to students. They're here. They're your number one customers. They can tell you, talk to recent graduates. What are the things that they would wish that they could have had experienced, while they were here, or, even the ones that are still here? Get their input. Talk to their parents. Talk to the community. And once you get all of this input, then you meet again and you start taking this input to create some, what I would say, 4 to 7 goals that you'd like to see happen. Which ones would you like to tackle first? And what are going to be the benchmarks that you'll know you're making success? So that you say, okay, I know when we see X that we are, getting closer to our final goal. And it needs to be written in language that any person can pick up, read, and know exactly what you mean. And then you need to put it on your website so anybody can take a look at it. You put in your, what I'll call your benchmarks or your indicators, so people know, oh, here's how we know whether or not you're making some success. If you do that, that helps drive all the other things budgetarily, which you just talked about in your district. In talking with Jeff, it's something that you haven't done for a while, maybe a long while. And I think coming in, it would give an opportunity for you to start setting the direction. So when you do find your next superintendent, that individual will already have a plan in place, knowing where the community, the staff, the board would like to see the district going and how they're going to determine whether or not there's some success. So it's lots of meetings. I'm not going to say it doesn't have time. It does have a time commitment. But you have a lot of buy-in at the end of the process, and you have things written in, I was an English teacher, in language that everybody can understand and everybody knows. Because I always would tell my students, don't do gobbledygook. Don't try to impress people by using a lot of large words where people read the sentence and doesn't know what anybody meant. These need to be clear, concise, and like I said, it should be able to fit in the front and back of a page of paper so that people can take a look at it and people actually know what's going to be done. So if you'd think that would be something that you would like to move ahead with, what we'll start working on as soon as I'm here is the process for how we'll start with step one, and we'll take it, and before the year's over, you'll have a game plan in place that I think will have a lot of support from both your staff, your students, and your community, and will give direction for the future decisions you need to make.
How do you go about gathering information? Do you do surveys, outreach?
I'm a great one for personal contact, so I would actually, I would put surveys in case individuals find that more convenient, but I would take, you have a beautiful auditorium, I would invite people to come to the auditoriums, depending on, you might want to do it one night, you might want to do it several nights, or different time periods, depending, but invite people in. What I always have used as a rule of thumb is, I'll give people as much opportunity as feasible to participate. And if they take advantage of the opportunities to participate, great, they're helping shape the focus.
Right.
If their choice is not to participate, that's their choice. But it's a lot easier, it's a lot harder to complain when you had the opportunity and didn't take it. So I would say you do it by, first I'd do a lot of meetings. And I actually would do some of the meetings, go where people are at. To always expect people to come to the district probably isn't, there's a certain percentage that will never come. They've
Right.
had some experience. So go where they are, you
Oh, we have
go-
service clubs
Yep.
around town.
There's
and,
all sorts of opportunities. You can go and meet them where they're at. And they will appreciate it.
I think it's a wonderful idea.
You can't have too much transparency in terms of moving, I think it's obvious we need to do this. It's something that's been, that we've been, for whatever reason, reluctant to tackle. And I have a feeling that we've got the right guy to maybe move us along in the right direction in this.
I
because
think
it's-
Jeff's a great person too. But I'll volunteer to take over.
Okay.
Jeff, I thought you meant Angie.
But I do think you do have a wonderful administrative team that's been wanting to look at this closer, and a lot of staff. You had a large community staff survey a few years ago that has yet to be really unpacked a lot. And we've got exit interview information from staff that left last year. This year, we're gonna have that same survey again. So there's a lot of information that we can unpack to help this process. So it's not like it has to only have some information moving forward, but we can certainly bring forward a lot of information that's been collected in the last few years.
Are we still collecting the data that Dr. Hickey did following kind of a longitudinal, after the kids have graduated, they've been filling out surveys and stuff like that? Do we continue that?
They continue to reach out and try to get information. I don't know where that process is at.
Okay, because I think it'd be nice to continue that.
I think this is a great idea. One thing I've been thinking about with it being summer and kind of when we start our back-to-school kickoff with bringing staff back in and having some meetings, would be maybe this would be a great opportunity to kind of meet with the staff as they come back into the school and talk to them about what their goals are too, short and long term,
Yeah, and I think you'd find a wide range.
I'm sure. But I think that it's important to, after a really rough year, or two to let them know that, you know, we're trying and we're here to listen and we're open to focusing that.
And one of the other things that I've done in the last two districts that was well-received is have what I call board staff conversations, where we find a time where, you know, the five of you will sit in certain areas. We'll have, you know, a couple of what I'll call starter questions, but then people can sit down and they can basically tell you, here's the things that are on our mind. Here's what we would like to tell you, you know, the things that are going well, the things we think you can improve, for you to take back. That, in the Belmont, where I'm finishing up now, they had never done it before, and both the board and the staff found it, you know, they wanted to do it twice a year. So we just finished the second one,
Yeah,
and they'll do that twice every year now. We did that in Williams Bay. People like the opportunity to be able to know that they can sit down with the board, tell them what's going on in their mind, and for many times, it's some of the first times that staff have met the board.
yeah, it's true. It's true. You would think it would be obvious, but it's not necessarily so. We've heard over and over again over the course of the last 6 months from teachers that never really gave much thought to the school board. It was a thing that they were aware of, but it was just kind of out there, and they didn't necessarily pay a lot of attention to kind of the day-to-day operation of a school and to become aware of that. So I think our staff especially would be very welcoming to those sorts of events.
And you have a large staff, so one of the things that I'm just thinking off the top of my head is I try to put is that, you know, you could go into one of the schools. So you might pick one early release or one day that could fit into your calendars, meet with one school staff. So you could break them in smaller chunks so it seems more intimate.
Mm-hmm.
But if it looks like there's an interest, what I'll start doing is start coming up with a process that's more finite to help give direction.
Please do,
I think that'd be great.
please
It
do.
would be great. The most recent UW alumni magazine has a big cover spread on Barry Alvarez.
Mm.
And there was a little write-up by J.J. Watts, in which he said he had a vision, and then he had a plan how to carry it out. And
Very
that's what
true.
made him so successful. And I think that is kind of what we need. We need that vision. And then we need to, as you say, have the metrics to follow through with it. So I'm
Good.
really excited about it.
Good, I'll start working on that.
Please do. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I would look for a motion to adjourn this evening.
I'll
I'm
bring
not
that
sure I
motion.
want to. I'm having so much fun.
Well, that's good. I'd like to
Great.
hear that. Okay, Bruce?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 3-0, and we are adjourned at 8:45. Thank you, one and all.
Yep, now, one of the things is that